Hey there, this is Dean DeVries over at Dean's List Real Estate Group at Keller Williams Realty. I'm joined by my good buddy here, Jimmy Clifton from Pritchard and Associates. I'm really excited to have Jimmy join us today because we're talking about something that a lot of people don't know about.
Absolutely.
We were just talking about right before we went live that this is something that people don't even really know that they're either eligible for or really don't even know what the heck it is. So what we're talking about today is flood insurance, and I'll let Jimmy give a little bit of background on who he is, where he's from, what he does, and that sort of thing, and then we'll dive in. So
right.
Welcome.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Dean. Thanks, sir.
For sure, man.
Well, like you said, I'm Jimmy from Pritchard and Associates Insurance. We're located in Tradition, Florida, and our corporate office is in Okeechobee, Florida. But the main thing I like to do is to educate people on insurance, because it's one of those taboo things that nobody really wants to talk about, nobody really likes until they actually need the insurance. So with flood insurance, when we dive into it, it's really just teaching you about what flood insurance is, how it's regulated, who regulates it, and why it's important to have, and the cost of it, which is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I want to dive into today.
Okay, cool. So let's start off with what the heck is flood insurance, and do we need it?
Well, let's start off with the definition of flood first.
Okay.
Flood is defined as rising dirty water from the outside of your home that actually gets into your home. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what a lot of people see on their insurance policy, they see water damage coverage. So they think, oh, water, flood, I'm covered for it. But actually, flood insurance is never covered on a standard homeowner insurance policy. Flood will never be covered. All right. So it is a separate policy, completely different from your standard homeowner insurance policy. So once again, definition of a flood: dirty, rising water from the outside getting into your home. So let's just start off there. Now, when it comes to flood zones, which you've heard about, is my house in a flood zone? Is my house not in a flood zone? That is regulated by the federal government. They go out, they map, they do their surveys, they decide whether your home has a higher percentage of not being in a flood zone in that 100-year storm is what they call it. All right. Have you ever heard about the 100-year storm?
No.
All right. What that is, people think that when they hear insurance or people use that term, oh, it's a 100-year storm, that it really means that's only going to happen one time in 100 years, which we all know isn't true. Being here in Florida, we just went through the largest hurricane in mass to ever hit the state of Florida. Now, could it happen next year? Possibly. The year after, it possibly could.
Yeah.
But what that 100-year means is that there's a 1% chance every year of 100 years for a storm like this to happen. So it actually means there is a 1% chance, they say, of every year your home being flooded. So that's why you want to make sure that you're protected.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So now how do people know if they're in a flood zone?
All right. It's very simple. It's called an elevation certificate. Most time, if you're going to buy a home, which with Dean, most of the time people are buyers, they want to have him as their buyer agent, or selling as well. He needs to know if the home's in a flood zone so he can get all that prepared for his sellers too. It's very simple. You can go online, you just Google it. Is my house in a flood zone? It'll take you right to the FEMA website, and you can just type your address in and they'll let you know.
Okay. Now, why is that important for sellers? All
right. For sellers, it's important because if you're trying to sell your home, and in the time that you've owned your home, maybe you've been grandfathered now into a flood zone, or reclassified, I should say, into a flood zone. All right. Now the person buying your home is going to have to buy something that you didn't have to buy when you bought your house as the seller. So that could be an added expense to their closing costs, all that kind of stuff. So it's very important to stay on top of that. Is your home now in a flood zone? Because if you had already owned the home and then were reclassified into a flood zone, you don't have to pay the flood insurance. So you're good there.
Okay.
But the people buying your house will absolutely have to buy that flood insurance.
Okay. Now, would you say it's a smart idea for a seller? Let's say somebody is listing their home and they want, they obviously want to make it as marketable as possible. Should they call you right as soon as they list it, or before they list it? What do you recommend there?
Absolutely. I always say get all your professionals involved immediately, whether that's a real estate agent, insurance, inspector, title, whoever you're using, get the professional involved early. Because what happens is that you wait and you go, it might be, it might not be. I'll handle this later. We procrastinate as human beings, just natural. And then all of a sudden I have to get this done. And it's a rush. It's sometimes it doesn't work out and you can't sell your home. I've had that before where, sellers they don't do what they need to be done in the beginning, and it kills the whole deal for them.
Yeah. Wow.
So definitely
that's super frustrating.
Get your professionals involved. I don't care who it is, inspector, title, realtor, insurance, get the professionals involved early.
Cool. Now you kind of already answered the question, but just to make it as clear as possible to our listeners here, if somebody that is listening is a potential buyer, at what point should they start thinking about this stuff?
All right, an elevation certificate is something that has to be done separate than all of your other inspections. It has to be done by a surveyor. I believe it's by the county or the city. Whoever is certified with them as a surveyor has to do that report. Now, what is very important about that inspection is it goes down to the 0.001 of an inch, because you have a flood base level. And then what that report does is it measures where your house base sits on that flood level. So if it comes back as being above that flood level, it's a great thing. You know, you're above the flood level.
Yeah.
But if it comes, but it's still good to have as soon as possible.
Okay. And I think we actually just lost a connection there for a split second. So just say that one more time about if they're in that level.
Okay. All right, just that report, the elevation certificate, what it does is it measures the actual base flood level of the area. And what it also does is show where your home is in conjunction to that. So you're either going to be above that base flood level or below it. So good price, a little bit of a higher price. So that's where you want to get that report done early so you know and lock in that price.
Okay, and just to clarify, if they are above that level, flood insurance, is it necessary? Are they eligible? Is it something that's optional?
If you have a mortgage and you're in a flood zone, I have seen it 100% of the times that the mortgage company requires it, that you have flood insurance.
Okay.
Now, I always say, look at a map of Florida. What are we surrounded by?
Yep, water everywhere.
All right, and I hate to bring up a bad thing, but it's kind of how we teach ourselves. Houston, they had that horrible storm.
Yeah.
There are people that were probably told, you're not in a flood zone, don't worry about it. And their lives right now are destroyed. And there's nobody there to help them because they didn't protect themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's one of those things that you as a home buyer have to take that responsibility upon yourself going, is this in my budget to protect my home from this catastrophic event? And it's really, it's on you at that point.
Okay. Now, assuming that somebody is not in a flood zone, are they, what is there, like one of the things that I've heard is, you know, if you're not in a flood zone, you can't even purchase flood insurance. And if that's a myth, please debunk it.
That's definitely a myth.
Okay. All right.
If you are not in a flood zone, it's actually a great thing. All of the flood rates are set by FEMA. There is nothing that an insurance agent can do to lower or higher that price besides just your coverages.
Okay.
So when that elevation certificate comes back, if you're in a flood zone, is the only time you'll need that report. I need to clarify that. So the only time you will need that elevation certificate is if you are in a flood zone.
Okay.
All right. And all we do is we take the numbers off that report, we plug it into the FEMA system, and they generate a number. That's just how it's done.
Okay.
If you are not in a flood zone, your insurance is going to be around $450 for the year, which is, I think, $37.20 a month. That it's regulated. They're set rates.
Okay.
All right. That's by the FEMA program. Now, a good thing is that a lot of private insurance carriers are starting to come out with what's called a flood endorsement. And there are cheaper options if you're not in the flood zone. So you definitely want to look into that. If right now, if you're thinking, you know, I don't have flood insurance, but I want to see if it's an option, call your insurance agent, or better yet, call me. Let me take a look at your current policy you have right now. I'll see if we can rework it and save you money there, as well as adding a flood endorsement for a cheaper value than the standard FEMA one.
Cool. Now, is there anything else that we should be asked, that I should ask you about flood insurance that we haven't already talked about?
It's pretty standard. One of the things about flood, you need to understand that it's pretty weird of a definition of what an insurance company considers flood. All right. There has to be 2 or more floods claims in your area to be considered a flood. So if you have a singular house and that singular house is flooded, check with your insurance company. That might not be covered by your flood insurance. I know it sounds strange. It sounds weird. It's one of those things that people don't like about insurance companies, but it's one of the things I want you to think about and protect yourself on right now. So definitely, if you have flood insurance, look at that. Is there have to be more than my house to be flooded to be considered a flood? So definitely look into that.
Now, I've also heard of people, especially after Hurricane Irma, that were not in a flood zone, but because of some infrastructure, you know, I guess there was some construction going on, and the drainage system was not, I guess, was not up to par, and it was not being effective.
Yeah.
So they ended up, even though they weren't in a flood zone, they still had major flood damage during that storm. So what would you say to people in that situation, and how can people avoid a situation like that?
Once again, I go back to, what are we surrounded by? We're surrounded by water. In Florida, you are in a flood zone, and it's not one of those things where we have to have 40 days of rain to have a flood. It can be as simple as your city's sewage system or drainage system not working, getting backed up. You know, all the debris from the hurricane, the tree, that backs up and all of a sudden it starts flooding in an area that they never thought would flood. Now you're sitting there going, well, I was told it wouldn't flood. Yeah, but you're also told, look, you can buy this insurance for $450 and save yourself. So once again, it's on you to kind of take that into perspective and go, is the risk really worth it to not buy something that costs $35 a month?
Cool.
So understand, it doesn't have to rain for 40 days and 40 nights for your house to flood. It can be a simple drainage issue with the county or city systems.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, man. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. I always tell all of my clients, I have a wealth of vendors that I know, like, and trust. And Jimmy is one of those people that I always recommend people connect with. Certainly there's never any pressure for you to use anybody that I recommend, but I highly recommend Jimmy and his company, Pritchard and Associates, for really anything insurance related.
Absolutely.
Can you do a quick 30-second pitch on kind of what you do and you know, why people should call you versus call, you know, State Farm or whatever?
Absolutely. Well, what separates myself and Pritchard and Associates is what we're doing right now. You know, we care enough to come out and have these partnerships with realtors, with mortgage companies, and kind of educate the client on what they need. You know, and as far as our company is concerned, we've been in business for 26 years now. We are family owned and operated by 3 generations, which you really don't see a lot anymore, which is a great thing. And also our company itself writes with over 100 different carriers for all lines of business. That's, you know, personal lines, that's home, auto, commercial. We do payroll now. If you own a business out there and you're thinking, maybe I can save some money here or there, give us a call. If you have a home, you know, where you think you're paying a little bit too much, reach out to me. You know, it takes me a day and a half to really do an insurance analysis on what you have and let you know if you're in a good position or not.
Cool. Yeah. And I think that's the part that really separates you guys, is that you have access to a bunch of different carriers. So instead of calling a specific insurance company and getting that rep, and that rep is going to obviously try to sell their company, you don't have a vested interest in any company because you have, you know, all of these other carriers.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that right?
My vested interest is in keeping that client for as long as I can. So if that means this year I write them with company A, but in 2 years company C has a better rate and I requote them, let's put them with company C. You know, that's what it's about. I want to keep that client for as long as I'm in the business.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks again, man.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate
it.
it. And guys, if you have any questions, I'm going to include Jimmy's information right below this this video, so you feel free to reach out to him. And if you have any questions for me or my team, anything real estate related, then and if it's insurance related, I'll be asking this guy. But we're here to help. So thanks again for watching.
Thank you. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Cool.
I like it.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, with this, it's really cool because on Google Hangouts, it records everything and then loads it automatically to YouTube. So it's
Do you have an editing thing on here yet or no?
No, I don't really edit it. I just send it out. You know?
I was thinking about, actually last night I was thinking about, because I was thinking about this today, about getting some kind of program where, you know, if I was talking about flood insurance.
Oh, actually, it looks like we're still live.
Oh. Hey, how's everybody going?
Yeah, we're trying to stop the feed. So sorry if you're seeing the behind the scenes stuff. Yeah,
I was thinking about last night, and one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, doing a quick, you know, thing on deductibles. The difference in Florida, we have 2 deductibles, a wind deductible and everything else.
Yeah.
And being able to do the video and then go back and edit it and write, you know, like scribble on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, as I'm talking, I can point up here like this.
Totally.
That kind of a program.
Yeah.
I was thinking
actually on YouTube, you can do something like that where you have I think they call it a I think it's called a card. Yeah, for some reason this is not stopping.